slight departure this time, having a look at the shop front, Snack Shacks, 55 High Street. But before we do, we'll just have a quick look above. Because what's above the shop front often tells us an awful lot about the history of the shop front as well. In this case, the parent building is clearly 18th century, so it's really quite an ancient building. The shop front is late 19th century, so this building's had a whole life of its own prior to the shop front being inserted. And you can start to see that there's a course of stone running around just below the shop cornice level. It gives an indication of its former self. Right, into the shop front itself. This shop front was recreated a couple of years ago, or largely recreated, because it wasn't really known that this remains here. It was uncovered while repairs were being carried out. It's actually a really good example of late 19th century, early 20th century shop front again, it's timber. The fact that it's timber gives you a good indication as well that this wasn't originally going to be a shop. Had it been built as a shop, more often than not, the shop front would have been created out of stone along with the rest of the building. So it suffered from all those usual problems: decay, water getting in above, water coming up from below. And it was fashioned to get rid of a lot of the fancier elements, particularly in the 1950s, 1960s. Fashions were more for streamlining buildings, simplicity. A lot of details were lost. In this shop front, a lot of it's been kept. It's really nice. Look at the shop entrance. Tiling at the entrance had gone, or whatever the original surface had been. It's been recreated using tiles from Craven Dunhill, a manufacturer from down south, one of the very few traditional tile manufacturers. And they've also managed to retain most of the tiles on the side panel, so a little bit like the Buttercup Dairy. You have a series of very fine coloured tiles, and for some reason, particularly the dairies, green was incredibly popular. So different shades of green are really common in shop fronts. The other thing that's worth looking at in these tiles is that they show late 19th, early 20th century tiling tends to be done with very, very, very thin joints. So if you go to a tiler now and you tile a shower, modern tiles are designed to be laid with a joint that's really quite thick. Victorian tiles aren't. They've got the barest minimum of tiles. So it's a good way of telling old tiling from some of the more recent tiles. In this case, the stall riser, the bit below the shop front, is also tiled. A good choice of materials because the tiling is not going to suffer too much from water throwing up from the pavement below, unlike the pilasters, which you've seen over here, which come straight the way down and end in the pavement. So a detail that we've got across the road on one of the original shop fronts has been replicated here. It's almost understandable if this starts to decay. It's not really meant to be in conjunction with the hard, stone, wet surface. But I'm getting a good few many years life out of it, so when these are being done, do them in durable timber. Other good thing about this shop front, it's got a lovely sign written name above, Snack Shack. This was done 2 years ago by a local sign writer, Robin Abbey. Robin's sadly died last year, but it's been done using traditional sign writing techniques. So you can see it there. I'm not going to do a lesson on sign writing, it's not something I know an awful lot about, but I could say is that if you're wanting a traditional sign written sign, go for it, but make sure that the backing board is really good quality. So in this case, marine ply is much better, much more hard weighted